Okay, everyone.
Hey, Peter Parker. You got something for me?
I had to beat an old lady with a stick to get this.
Okay, send out the countdown clock. And here we go.
10, 9, 8,
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And welcome to Secrets to Surviving Alienation. We don't have any guests today. Been a busy week. I'm Mr. X, your producer. My host is off, doing a few other things, difficult things. And, what we're going to do today is watch a few different videos and, go from there. Let's bring this one up. We're gonna first one we're gonna watch is In the Eyes of Specialists. It's about 15 minutes. That one's about 15 minutes, and then exposing narcissists in the courtroom is also 15, and then an alienated mom shares how she survived being erased from her daughter's life. So I'm gonna get off here, and we're gonna go to this.
In parental alienation, a child is rejecting a parent for a non-protective reason. In other words, that parent is safe, the child is protected and safe with that parent, and there was an unreasonable rejection due to an alienating influence.
If we rule out that there is no abuse and this child is not wanting to see them, we have to recognize that they're being abused by the other parent to not have a relationship with them. Because again, it's the child's right to have a relationship with them. And if that person is not supporting that and not recognizing their own role in not allowing that to happen, that's abuse. And then that child, if you notice, alienated children will defend them tooth and nail, just like you see these kids defending the people who are abusing them sexually.
It's something that's existed for many, many decades. And I think now we're reaching a point where we're starting to recognize that a child who says vehemently, I'm not going to see a parent after family separation, is a child that's waving a red flag.
It's also considered domestic violence because the intent of the behavior is to harm the other parent and the relationship with the child. And so many behaviors that alienators do aren't always involving the child. The child can be a weapon that's used against them, but they will engage in many, many behaviors just to hurt the other parent.
And if you've got a parent who demonstrates, who shows, who through their behavior signals to the child that it's not acceptable for the child to have a relationship with the other parent, then the child will respond to that because their greatest anxiety is that that parent will become emotionally unavailable to them.
Parents are being accused falsely of sex abuse. Terrible, terrible. If a child believes the false story that they had been sexually abused by a parent, they are at the same risk potential for PTSD as if it actually had happened. This is criminal behavior, absolutely criminal behavior. The alienator is assaulting the child's memory, feelings, thinking, relationship with the parent. Assault is a crime.
So whenever I conduct trainings with mental health providers and lawyers as well, one question that always comes up is, how do I know whether it's alienation or the child is really being abused and they don't want to see the other parent?
So if you follow the model, there would be no way for an abused child to be considered alienated as long as we have accurate ways of determining if a parent has been abusive.
So when you see a child who's rejecting one parent, especially strongly, and you see a child, the same child is strongly aligned with the other parent, probably that's an alienated child, not an estranged one.
Alienating parents use a lot of the same strategies of loyalty-inducing things that people who are trying to groom children to be sexually abused use.
And we have a lot of research about how profoundly dysfunctional and unstable an alienating parent is. Let's face it, a normal parent will not try to undermine the relationship between the child and the other parent. A normal parent appreciates that the child has a need for the other parent. And when the alienating parent can't appreciate that, they lack empathy, for one thing.
The model says that 4 things need to be present in order to know that a rejecting child is alienated. All 4 have to be present. So we try to set the bar pretty high so that we are not placing or considering an abused child as an alienated child.
For a child to reject a parent is not just about the dreadfulness of murdering a parent who is still alive and saying, I no longer want to have you in my consciousness. It's about the way that that child has murdered part of themselves and has then been forced to live with it. And it's only when that child comes into their young adulthood that perhaps the gravest consequences of what they've been forced to do really starts to come to light.
Parents who alienate their children are not only engaging in psychological abuse, but also even physical abuse and social isolation and other types of things to harm that child and keep them away from the other parent. But it does a lot of significant damage to that child and to their relationships with others.
This is evidence-based science. You don't just get to make it up. I think it's important, as an aside, to distinguish between science and a belief system, or science and ideology, or science and speculation.
I'm a scientist and I don't work with possibilities, like what's probable. Because when you're making decisions about children, you need to go with what the evidence says. And the evidence says abused children don't often act that way.
Why do we care if a rejecting child is alienated or estranged, right? Maybe it doesn't matter, but it does. And the reason it matters is because the treatment would be very different.
There's a concept in statistics and probability that turns out to be extremely relevant to these clinical cases. And that concept is the concept of a base rate, which I'll define in a minute, and ignoring the base rate, which is called base rate neglect.
And if you're looking for alienation and even other kinds of domestic violence, you have to look at patterns over time. Because abusive parents they use coercive control, they use ways to dominate the other person, and that you have to look deep and you have to look at it over an extended period of time.
If the professional doesn't have specialty level pattern recognition, or better yet, subspecialty level pattern recognition, you're liable to make a lot of mistakes and miss the important patterns.
Well, actions speak louder than words. I say immediately, you have to be able to reason backwards. When the alienating parent shows genuine support for the relationship between the other parent and child, you know it in how the child behaves. They will accept the other parent like this, like a light switch.
If you're using intuition even when you shouldn't, then you tend to have great confidence in your incorrect conclusions. That's almost true by definition. It feels right. So no matter how wrong you are, if it was intuitive thinking, it feels right. And I'll repeat the catchy phrase. Consequently, they tend to have great confidence in their incorrect conclusions. And that's a huge problem.
There's a kind of a perception that both parents must be contributing to the problem for this child to be rejecting them. You know, one parent must be doing something bad, and then the other parents, and they're both acting badly towards each other. And in my experience, interviewing and talking to targeted parents and researching them, that a lot of them are really helpless. They have almost no power or control over what's happening in their lives, in their children's lives. The alienating parent really controls everything. They control access and communication to their child. Anything that that parent will say to the child is interpreted by that child as negative and hostile towards the other parent who they're trying to protect. So my experience was that it's impossible for this person to reciprocate when you actually see the dynamics in these families.
What's going on here is the alienating parent tends to be a master manipulator, often an accomplished liar, brilliant at managing impressions, and so on, and is the aggressor who's winning. The other parent is a trauma victim.
So rather than sort of these children blossoming, they're kind of wilting under the care of the favored parent, and that's just profoundly frustrating, and that word doesn't just really begin to capture how painful it is for the targeted parent to go through that.
For one thing, it requires certain types of thinking that are not commonly taught to professionals. Some advanced medical concepts, for example, reasoning backwards from effect to cause, and conditional probability, which is the probability of one thing given another thing, or the probability of one event given that another event has already occurred. So not to get too technical, that's the first point. It requires special expertise, and that expertise is not necessarily common among the people who deal with these cases.
Typically, alienating parents are what we call narcissistically vulnerable. They feel very threatened when part of their identity is being diminished within the dissolution of the marriage. So they externalize the blame and project it outward towards the targeted parent. And the children get involved in that, and they're caught in the middle.
Usually, when you're dealing with alienation, it's one of three types or a combination: borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, or some type of a sociopathic personality disorder.
And my most recent paper, we found that in the US, it's about 22 million adults are the victims of parental alienating behaviors, and they are not reciprocating the behaviors. So they are the primary targets of these behaviors.
Is rejection of a parent serious for a child? It absolutely is. To reject a parent is a very unnatural thing for a child to do. We are born helpless into the world, and we attach to our primary caregivers as a way of avoiding being abandoned. And our biggest fear is that we will be abandoned. And unfortunately, what happens to children in these circumstances is that they are forced to reject a parent against their natural way of being in the world, and then they're forced to live with and suffer the consequences of that, which are very, very deep, and they're long lasting. And one of the problems about alienation is that we don't readily see the impact on the child in the here and now. What we see is the impact of the child much further down the line.
But whether this is deliberate and conscious, or whether it's unconscious, the child is still at risk of the same kinds of harm. And therefore, we need to think of it in terms of it as child abuse and child protection.
So what my research shows is it's just like other kinds of violence. It doesn't discriminate. Where we do find gender differences is in how we as a society respond to it.
The problem for parental alienation, and those of us who understand the damage that it does to children, is that feminism removes the gaze from where it needs to be and argues that the gaze should simply be on women. apart from when women are alienated?
I wouldn't say it's counterintuitive for someone who is a specialist in this area, just like quantum physics. If you're a professor of physics, it's not counterintuitive to you. If you're a normal person, it is.
The non-specialist in alienation will say, oh, this is a relationship problem between a child and a parent. I know how to treat that. Well, there's a world of difference if the child is rejecting the parent for legitimate protective reasons, or it's a result of a brainwashing.
When non-specialists see it, what you see is a child who seems close to mom or close to dad. They can sit in an interview and the parent is rubbing the child's back and holding hands, and the child tells you how great the parent is and how bad the other parent is. Anyone who doesn't have specialty level expertise is liable to leave that interview thinking, what a great relationship. So I'll repeat the phrase, non-specialists almost always, and I don't use a term like that lightly, almost always mistake pathological enmeshment for healthy bonding.
When the alienating parent alleges alienation, you have an obligation then to say, let me explore this, and is this my area of expertise? And if I don't know the 8 manifestations, and I don't know the 17 alienating strategies, and I haven't taken a CEU course, and I wasn't trained in family dynamics, and I've never been to a conference like PASG, and I don't collaborate with one single known expert in the field on alienation, this is outside my area of expertise. I have an obligation to do one of two things: get an expert to supervise me, or say, you know what, I'm in way over my head. I have to pass this case. I cannot treat it.
Targeted parents are living in an unending grief.
The alienator presents with the 4 C's. He or she is cool, calm, convincing, and cool, calm, charming, and convincing. By contrast, the alienated parent, the targeted parent, has the 4 A's. He or she is anxious, agitated, angry, or afraid. And if you don't know to look for that pattern, and you interview each one, you think you've got it all figured out after the first interview with each person.
And I specialize in a 4-day intensive reunification program. I call it a therapeutic vacation because it's a combination of talking and activities that the child likes. And these children jumpstart a reconnection. They got on planes from across the country, from California, Florida. They took 4-hour car rides from Delaware and Maryland to New York, and they came voluntarily. That's how easy it is to get them to come once the court frees them from the loyalty conflict. Kids who threaten to kill themselves, to run away, to self-harm, to do all sorts of things, that is just part of the programming that they are freed from with the court order for Turning Points for Families.
You know, I don't think it's ever going to totally go away because it is a malicious activity, and there are malicious people who do things. It's a little bit like bank robbery. You know, no matter what you do, there's still going to be bank robbery.
All right, guys. So let me make something clear. I know you guys were asking about the donations. I kind of got distracted with them, with some other stuff. It's yes, it would help pay for StreamYard. But other than that, I just want you guys to watch. I don't care if you donate. It would help. It would help get better equipment. It would help be able to set up a fund for people going through parental alienation. I mean, I've never had people donate anything to any of the shows. I do a podcast called Secrets Untold. I don't make any money on that. I do make money on a little bit of audio work here and there, and off another StreamYard show I'd make for Food and Beverage Magazine and Proof Live. But it's a pendants, like $25 a show. So honestly, if you really, really, really want to donate, go ahead. If you don't, I don't care. This is more to make exposure to this issue of parental alienation more than anything. So, no, I do not have credentials. My credentials, I went to school for broadcasting and 9 years of military. And I'm a dad. I've gone through the court system for a bunch of other bullshit. But other than that, I hope I satisfied the commenters saying I'm just looking for money. I don't care about money. I work. I have a day job. So, I mean, if you want to be a troll, be a troll. Go for it. But this isn't for me. This is for the people out there that are dealing with some fucked up shit, not being able to see their kids with no due just cause. I mean, if you're a piece of shit fucking up your kids, you can go fuck yourself and kill yourself for all I care. But other than that, donate if you want to. Donate if you want to. If not, watch, share, spread awareness, help somebody out. At the end of the day, if this helps somebody and I don't make money, okay. I could put it in my resume, say, hey, look, I did this. Blah, blah, blah. And maybe get a radio job. I don't know. But other than that, just straight up don't care. But I'm going to shut the hell up and hop on this other video for you guys. And it will be International Parental Alienation Day in April. So it's sad to say that we have to have that. Well, next video, exposing a narcissist in court. Oh, and I want to say sorry for the computer being slow. It's my wife's computer. A lot of CPU usage doing these streams. My computer's still down that I was using, and I'm waiting for good old Uncle Sam's mail to bring me my motherboard so I can get it put in and have a good rig. So, without further ado, I'm going to shush my face and you guys enjoy. Feel free to comment.
Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Angel Storm. I'm the founder of Ashes to Beauty Ministries, and today I want to talk to you about how you can best expose the fact that your spouse or the parent of your children is a narcissist in a courtroom setting or in another professional setting. So maybe you're at the part where you are doing mediation, you're getting divorced, but things haven't really progressed into the courtroom, or perhaps you're in the courtroom already. You already have attorneys, you have legal dates set, and maybe even psych evals. You're undergoing those. You're ordered to co-parenting courses or co-parenting mediation sessions or co-parenting therapy sessions. Whatever it is your case, I want to talk to you about how you can expose the fact that your ex is a narcissist without coming across as crazy your own self, and how you can get these systems that are set in place that so often fail, how you can get them to work for you. So first of all, the right thing to do is not to come in with a whole DSM list of criteria for narcissistic personality disorder, or list off and rattle off a whole lot of narcissistic traits that the other party has. That isn't going to help you. What you want to do is allow the mediator, the guardian ad litem, the therapist, who's ever involved in your case, you want to give them an opportunity to observe the narcissist for who he is, their own selves. So while coming in with a list of different text messages or emails or appointments that are super important to your kids or whatever, but they didn't show up to, that's helpful. But that needs to be secondary evidence. That cannot be the thing that the whole case is based off of. What you need to make sure is you allow opportunities for the narcissist to expose himself, especially when he's around these type of people. And I know that a lot of times you say, well, he's a completely different person when he's around other people, and how do I get him to expose who he truly is in front of them? And the first thing I want to say is to not look at all of the court appearances or the different court appointed things that you have to do, such as psych evals or mediation or therapy, whatever it is that you have to do for court, to try not to look at those things as a hassle, as something that's really weighing on your soul, as something that isn't going to serve you, because those are perfect opportunities for you to get the narcissist to expose who he truly is in front of people who have a tremendous amount of say, a tremendous amount of impact in your case. So if you have been following my YouTube channel at all, or if you follow my ministry or me on social media, you know that this exact situation is what launched Ashes to Beauty. It's the reason that I started a ministry. It's the reason that I started a business that helps people who are recovering from narcissistic abuse. So this is something that I not only care deeply about, I'm passionate about it. I not only have the experience, but I have the research behind what I'm talking about as well. So you want to be taking advice, and you want to be listening to somebody who checks those 3 boxes. In my case, what we had was we had a deposition for the biological father of my twins, and he was basically, a deposition is basically where your attorney would ask the other party questions, and this is all under oath. So this can take several hours, which is why it's usually done outside of court. And that way you can get his testimony on the record under oath. It can be admitted into evidence, admitted into the court system, but it doesn't take up the court's time. So we did this. And so, for example, one of the things that you could do is start asking questions that you know he's going to have to contradict himself in. So, for example, do you love your kids? Do you think spending time with your kids is a top priority for you? And once he says yes to these things, yes, of course, yes, yes. And you know how a narcissist is. They're very showy in their responses. So you're probably not going to get a yes. You're going to get, I would do anything for my kids, or some sort of over the top response. It's those responses that you want them to do. You want the narcissist to step right into his own trap. So after you've established the fact that, of course, he's a great parent, he loves the kids, he has their best interests at heart, then you want to start bringing out the secondary evidence that you've been collecting. So your emails, your text messages, all of the doctor's appointments or school appointments, whatever you may have that he didn't show up to, all of the things that he forgot about, anything that he's tried to cut you out of as well. Start bringing up those things. Do you think it's in the child's best interest to have a mom? And use his responses to further bring up the secondary evidence, and that's how you can get it admitted into court. That's how you can get him to comment on it under oath in a legal setting. Thing to keep in mind is that the narcissist's attorney is likely a narcissist, because we attract what we are. We don't attract what we want, we attract what we are. And so your attorney is probably not going to be a narcissist. So they're not going to be overtly confrontational. They're not going to be very aggressive. They're going to think that this can be just settled as a normal divorce or co-parenting situation. And that is just simply not true. So be aware that the narcissist attorney is likely a narcissist, and they're going to use the same tactics, except that they have the knowledge of the law. And so advising your attorney about this and making sure that your attorney is willing to be aggressive for you is definitely going to help you, because the other side is likely going to file a ton of stuff that has nothing to do with anything, complete lies, all of this type of false information, and they do that to confuse the court. They do this to muddy the waters so that the court has no idea what's true and what's not, and it's just, we can't really tell who's doing what, and that's exactly what the narcissist wants. And the attorney absolutely understands that this is a great place to have the judge or the guardian ad litem in, where they can't really make sense of who is making the confusion happen, so that they can blame you and say that it was you who's doing all of this. Okay, so when I started this video, I said that you should not try to go into these situations and just be presenting all of the evidence for why the other person is a narcissist, for why they have narcissistic traits that are unhealthy for you, that are unhealthy for the kids, or whatever the situation is, whether it's a divorce where there's no children, or it's a co-parenting custody dispute. Regardless of what it is, it's not in your best interest to go in there and just say, look at all of these things that I have, and I've done some research, and here's all of the reasons why I believe he's a narcissist. That's not going to help you. However, having your research is definitely going to help you. So the way that you present it is equally as important as knowing your information. And you will not convince somebody if you already have the posture or the tone of you're right and that person is an idiot and they need to get out of your life, which is exactly probably how you're feeling, but you can't say that. You can't present your information that way. Remember, all of these things that you're having to do, so whether you're having to go to mediation, or you're having to go to co-parenting classes or counseling, those are opportunities for you to expose who he is in front of somebody who will have an impact on your case. So get him to do that. That's why you need to know, what are the traits of a narcissist? What are some ways that I can highlight this? One of the things that you can bring to light is the fact that a narcissist must win. There is not ever an altruistic motive with a narcissist. I have lots of videos that talk about this kind of show that the narcissist loves to do, which is, he's just thinking about other people. He's super generous. He's very involved in what's going on in the community or the planet or whatever. He's all about doing this stuff, and it's not that at all. The narcissist has to appear that way. And so if you can highlight the fact that the narcissist views this situation as no different, he just wants to win. He doesn't actually care about kids. He doesn't care about what happens to you and making sure things are done fairly and rightly. He doesn't care about that. What he cares about is winning. In this type of situation, what that looks like is you admitting defeat. It looks like them making outrageous demands and having them backed by the guardian ad litem or whoever the third party is. If you have somebody involved in your case, whether it's the people who did the psyche evals or whatever, they want that person to be on their side because they're all about control. Remember, the narcissist, control and manipulation are the two things that they can never go without. And so this situation is not going to be any different. In fact, those things are going to be highlighted. They're going to be heightened. You're going to be able to see them more clearly. So having a list of things that you know the narcissist is going to do, and allowing those things to come to light when there are third parties present, when there are third parties that can also validate and verify the fact that what you are saying is true, that there's no way that these can be hidden underneath the rug and things like that. That's what you need to focus on. And using these opportunities where you have to interact with the narcissist or court or with a third party who's going to present their findings or their evidence to court, use them as opportunities for the narcissist to expose who he is. He can say one thing, but what is he actually doing? And those opportunities, those times when you're in front of the third party, that's really what you need to be doing. You need to say and highlight the discrepancies in between his words and his actions. The other thing you need to do is to make sure that you have a great filing system. You need to keep copies of everything. Divorces with narcissists or custody battles with narcissists, they're always prolonged. They're always way over the top. There's nothing normal about going through the court process with a narcissist. So keep copies of everything. Make sure you have a great way to file it. And if you're interested, hire a divorce coach. A divorce coach is somebody who will coach you through the process, especially when you're divorcing a narcissist or going through a custody battle with a narcissist. And they keep you grounded, they keep you centered, they make sure that you're doing certain things for your own mental health and to plan for your future. So they can help you stay on track with your finances. They can help you stay on track with making sure that your children are registered for school if you have to move because of the housing situation or whatever. And they just make sure that all of those loose ends are tied up and that they're presented in such a way at the final hearing, whether you go to trial or whatever you do, that those things are presented in a way that there's no disputing about what is happening, that you have copies showing that you did every single thing that you were ordered to do. And one final thing that I want to say about divorcing a narcissist or going through a custody battle with a narcissist is to assume that anytime that they want to talk to you, any sort of information that they are trying to get to you, whether that's in person or it's over email or text messaging or whatever, assume that it's risky, an alternative motive behind why they are contacting you. And if you don't already, make sure that you get OFW or you use Talking Parents or another court-ordered app to keep track of the conversation, because there's no way that anybody can manipulate that. And even if the narcissist wants to say, well, I want to try to work this out, can we meet face-to-face and talk? Assume that there is something else going on. Do not ever trust what they are saying. Again, look at the past behavior and see what is really going on there. Again, the process of going through a divorce or going through a custody battle is already stressful enough, but you need to really be on your game with a narcissist. The point of collecting all of that secondary evidence that I was speaking about in the first part, where they don't show up for appointments, they don't communicate about certain things, they break your co-parenting agreement, all of that stuff needs to be documented, and it needs to be brought up again in a legal way. So whether it's a deposition, whether it's at a counseling session, but it needs to be brought back in for the narcissist to address later on. And the point of doing all of that is to show that this is a pattern of behavior. It's repeated behavior. This isn't a one-time thing, which is exactly what the narcissist is going to say. Well, I was just so stressed because of this situation, or she's stressing me out. She's making me question everything that I'm doing. When do not take the blame that somebody else is trying to put onto you. You know the truth, and you need to keep bringing out that truth and showing that this is a repeated pattern of behavior, and not just in this court situation, but that's something you've had to live with for many months or years, that you've had to put up with. And so showing the truth and allowing more and more opportunities for that truth to be brought into a situation where the narcissist cannot hide from it. He cannot lie to get out of it. He is held down to what he said, and he has to address it in front of third parties. That is going to be tremendously helpful. So guys, again, I'm Dr. Angel Storm. I'm the founder of Ashes to Beauty Ministries. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to my channel below. And if you want to know more about me, about what I do, about the products and services that I offer, go ahead and check out my website.
Okay, guys, so we saw how to expose a narcissist in the courtroom. And I thought it was a good resource. And I hope the one person that popped off on my message on Messenger and in the reply. Don't be too quick to judge somebody doing something. I more do it for altruism. I don't like being called out on bullshit. Instead of questioning, go back and watch some of the shows. And maybe there's a resource in there. I understand the legitimacy of your question, but don't jump too much to judgment. A lot of people do that today, and they don't need to. So, on to the next one. Let's watch an alienated mom share her story. And then hopefully that story will help some of you guys, give you some insight, some strategies, and whatnot. Ooh, that looks yucky.
Hello, everyone. So today I'm doing much better than I was yesterday. I'm grateful that my glass is back on because it's windy. I'm grateful to my boss who allowed me to take that time yesterday that I needed to take care of my mental health, my well-being. I just had this overwhelming feeling like, I think it was, just everything, anxiety. It was pretty bad yesterday, but one thing I wanted to kind of connect with you about are a lot of the coping skills and mechanisms and tools that I have, and how I've learned to not stay in that place that I was in yesterday, to self-soothe and heal. And it's definitely not easy. But yesterday, I took the time. I went to I bought a journal. I went to the beach. I wrote in my journal. I drew a little picture for Hannah. I cried. I didn't really talk to anybody aside from, some people I would encounter when I was there, but I did my best to stay off of social media, and even, messaging my parents to tell them I was really just trying to make it through on my own, and it seemed to work. But a turning point for me that happened when I was going through the hardest parts of mediation, when I could tell that things were not going to be going in a positive direction, a direction for the benefit of Hannah. When I could tell that my ex-husband and his attorney had done a really good job at conveying and convincing the mediator that it would be better for Hannah to not have me around. It was that particular day in May of 2013 that there was that moment of devastation and breakdown, and kind of realized I needed to start taking care of myself, because the only thing that I can really control is myself and my actions and my health and my well-being in my life. And for too long I was living under the fear and threat that my ex-husband always had over me that he was going to try to take my daughter from me. So what I did was I changed. At that point, I was about 60 pounds overweight. So thanks to a good friend of mine, Kevin and Danielle, good friends of mine, who introduced me to paleo, and then connecting with my mom. My mom kind of got on board immediately with paleo. She thought it would help some of the health issues she was having. And so she jumped on the paleo bandwagon, followed by my father. And within a week, I started removing the processed foods and carbs and sugars and dairies from my diet. I was also going to yoga. Yoga was instrumental as well. Having an amazing support system that I have with my family. I'm very fortunate and blessed with that. And my friends. And then I also amped up my exercise routine. I started going to personal training. So thanks to Giselle and Dave, and shout out to Synergy Personal Fitness in Elk Grove. Anybody in Sacramento looking for a good place to work out, you should check them out. Anyway, because of that, I also then trained for Tough Mudder, thanks to Eric Contreras for asking me to join. So I did Tough Mudder in September of 2013, and that was a very empowering moment. Training for something, facing your fears, and coming away feeling kind of invincible. I feel with this alienation, being separated from Hannah, from the beautiful person and beautiful soul and spirit that Hannah is. She's a light in this world, and so to be separated from her and to survive it, I kind of feel like I have nothing to fear. I have nothing to lose. I've already lost like the most important person in my life, but not permanently, I hope. Anyway, so Tough Mudder, friends, exercise, diet, yoga, reconnecting to source. Also participating in, I'm fortunate enough that I got involved in Aztec dance, thanks to Angelica and Maestro. And also to Raz, who invited me. I went to Sweat Lodge. So a lot of my healing has kind of come about in that way. And also through Facebook, connecting with all the alienated people that I have, all the amazing advocates like Wendy Archer, now Wendy Perry, Joe Barrow, Jaco, having gone to the ISNAF meeting and meeting Linda Gottlieb in person, and then going to the Parental Alienation think tank in Texas, and meeting the amazing Rod McCall, who shared his story, which is the worst tragic story and outcome that a parent, anybody, could ever live through. And he's living, and he's making it his mission to raise awareness. And so I think for me, that's another element, that another layer to me being strong and healing myself. Is the only option I have, is to speak up and is to try to help others. And that's something that I actually want to make a mission and part of my life, is to be here for others and to help other people who are in the desperate, dark places, to know there is hope, and not to give up. Life can be beautiful. You just have to return to the things that bring you joy. Start a gratitude journal in the morning, write down 5 things that you're thankful for. At night, write down 5 things, or as many as you can think of. But sometimes that can be hard when you're feeling hopeless. The risk and the rate of suicide among alienated parents, and I'm sure also among alienated children, It's very high. So we need to change the perception of alienated parents, targeted parents. When you hear a story, I'm asking this to the general public, when you hear a story, someone tells you, oh, I'm a single dad or I'm a single mom, and the parent has abandoned their child, that can happen. And there are parents who choose to walk away. There are parents that abandon their children. There are parents who are drug addicts and murderers that, you can say, okay, we can understand why maybe, why it would be detrimental to have you in the life of your child. However, that wasn't me, and it's not most of the parents that I know. All of the parents that I know, they're loving and they want nothing more than to be with their children, and they're fighting for the right. Why should you have to fight for the right to be in your children's life? The system is set up that the person that gets the most time, so what I mentioned in a video with the Walk for Lost Kids last week, by my ex-husband getting full custody, though he makes 4 times the amount I make, which means that he makes a very decent wage, enough to live on. He didn't need my money, but by taking the child's, by the way the system's set up, him getting full custody, I had to pay 25% of my income, which meant it didn't, it wasn't enough to survive on. It wasn't enough to live. So that meant I had to move. I moved in, thankfully, with my parents. So I had to move 2 hours away back home. I'm living with my parents at their place. And that's what I've been doing for nearly 2 years. I did pay my child support, so my obligation, according to the court, is and to my daughter, that way is done. There are other things that I will be doing for my daughter, setting money aside for her for when she comes back around. But the fact that again, that there's really no penalty for the parents that are keeping the children away. Why are they not fined? I don't get it. So something needs to change in the system. But anyway, enough of the system. See, that's where it gets heavy for me. It's also about balance and work-play balance. And, I think that's also partly what depleted me this yesterday was, again, I'm glad. I don't regret the any of the advocacy or walking with Patrick. That was fantastic, actually. And meeting Carlos and Ben. But there's an element of balance in how much we can actually give to others. We have to make sure that we keep ourselves replenished. And anyway, so that's a little bit of what I wanted to say today. Again, unscripted. I'm still looking at myself and realizing I have no makeup on. I have dark circles, but here we are. We're at the park. This is where I work, Scotts Valley. This is McDorsa Park. Actually, right behind me, over here, hold on. That is a police station. I think maybe one of these days I'll have to go in and talk to them about what happens when they go to try to enforce a visitation. What do they do? What happens if the teenager doesn't want to go? Anyway, I'd be interested to know if you want to comment on this video, share it. That'd be awesome. The more awareness that we can raise, the better. But I'd be interested to know, what things are you doing? How are you coping? How are you surviving? can you do? What things can you start doing? I'd like to also, I'm walking over here and I'm going to show you guys something because it's pretty cool. This woman here is blowing bubbles. There's a bunch of bubbles there. I don't know if you can see, but she was blowing bubbles with her kids. So bubbles of love. And hoping that all of you have a good day. And yeah, please reach out and let me know. Let's start this conversation. How can we take care of ourselves through this darkest pain that we're all suffering? Talk to you later. Stay strong.
So, there you have it. It's long issue. Affects a lot of people. If you know somebody out there dealing with this, check on them. And if you're thinking about ending it all, don't reach out, help somebody. And don't take your life. Reach out. You're not alone in this fight. You guys have a good night. And thanks for watching.
My greatest moments didn't come from my greatest moments. My greatest moments came from my greatest defeat.